I'm Dale from Dale's Gig Reviews and Metallaville online magazine.
Hi,
And
Dale.
it is a massive pleasure to talk to somebody who's been on my bedroom wall as a teenager.
Nice. Okay, good, man. Well, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it.
No, it's fantastic. So, for people who don't know, you're a thrash metal bassist, you're a songwriter, a book writer, 2019 inducted into the Heavy Metal Hall of Fame, as well as several bands under your belt. Is there anything you don't do?
I try not to mow the lawn very often.
You and me both.
Other than that, I'm a man of many talents.
Right. Well, I believe it or not, I've never seen you play before, which is one of my big failings in my life. Is that I've never seen, but that is going to be rectified next year in August at Stonedead Festival, where you'll be
Right,
performing near Kings of Thrash.
right. Yeah, we were very honored to be asked to headline the stage there for Earache Records as part of Stone Dead. And we did a really great UK tour last year in 2024, October 2024. And then we, a couple days later, rolled over into Europe and carried on for another couple weeks over there. So we've tipped the proverbial toe in the water. And so it'll be good to be coming back. We have some dates up in Norway that I think have just been announced for mid-August. And
Mhm.
then that'll lead us down into another handful of dates across the UK that are being put together right now. And then that'll land us over in Stone Dead, which I'm really looking forward to. That's really a well-known, prestigious festival. So I'm looking forward to playing there.
It's a very friendly festival. It's got like a big family feel, and yeah, the people who go there seem to know the people who run it, and it's just a
Good,
really lovely festival.
good,
So
good, good,
I'm
good.
very excited.
Sounds like my kind of festival. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've got my special jacket on, as you can see, P cells.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, you'll see me at Stone Dead 'cause I tend to wear flashy stuff, so I
Good.
like to try and stand out instead of being all in me black heavy metal clothing.
Nice, nice. Very good.
Yeah, so you've got your tour with Bass Warrior still, with Andy Martin. I can't pronounce his name.
Martin
Martingelli.
Jelly. Martin Jelly, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So you've got 30th of November, South of Heaven, Bilton, Belgium. 1st of December, the picture, Dusseldorf, Germany. 3rd, you've got Bluesiana in Austria. 4th, you've got Italy, and 5th, you're somewhere in Italy as well, Music Factory. That's quite a few countries in a short time.
Yeah, well, that's the beautiful thing about Europe, right? You can hit a lot of different territories within only a couple hour drive or an hour or two flight, you know? So, yeah, it'll be great to take Base Warrior into Belgium. I'm very excited about that. My friend Andy, who owns the Pitcher up there in Dusseldorf, has been a longtime friend and a big supporter for me, and he's got a really great little club there that's perfect for what Base Warrior is and what we do. And same with Bluesiana. We just played there last back in March when we were doing a more extensive Bass Warrior tour. And Cremonia, same thing down in the it's south of Verona in that area, and then the other one is over closer to Venice. Um, so yeah, Bass Warrior's been it's been a really a fun tour. You know, we get to go to a lot of places. You know, we travel by car and van. It's very nimble, and I really like it. You know, I've spent so many years in buses and planes and sleeping in the back and just kind of missing a lot of what was out there, you know, or when I was awake, it was dark and sitting up front with the driver of a bus watching the miles click by, the highway to hell, you know, as AC/DC called it, right? And you know, so it's nice. I like to be now more kind of among the living, you know, during the daytime, experiencing the culture, the people, you know, seeing the sights. You know, so much of Europe looks just like America, which, you know, years ago I put that together, go, I see why my ancestors moved to Minnesota, you know, from Scandinavia, because it looks just like Scandinavia, you know. And you know, you get down into Italy and topographies and stuff, and of course the food around the continent is fantastic, you know. So, and the same thing with the UK, you know, to be able to just skedaddle around, you know, all of the UK that I've been across so many times before. But now to do it, you know, I think the thing is, I've probably never been happier in my whole life than I am now. You know, I get to do what I want, how I want to do it, where I want to do it, with the people I want to do it with. And I mean that is a luxury right there to be able to do that, you know. I spent a lot of years building something. Um, and yeah, I think to me now the rewards, of course, we like, you know, high revenue, high ticket sales, those things are all great. But I've come to realize as life goes on, that is not the focus. You know what I mean? Those, you know, being joyful in it, enjoying it, walking away with experiences is way more important than all the other stuff right now. And we've got a great with Base Warrior, we have a great catalog of stuff. Obviously, I tip into some Megadeth stuff, but you know, I've done, you know, the Ellefson Sleeping Giants, Ellefson No Cover, which Andy Martingelli was a part of that with me. We've got two Ellefson Soda records that we've done, so we have a lot of catalog to tip into, you know. An hour and a half isn't enough time to you know to really dig that, but we do. I think we do a pretty good job doing a cross section of that. So you know, for me, everything that I'm doing right now is it's really a joyful time in my life.
Yeah. I'll probably manage about 10 minutes of vicious head banging, and I'll have to sit down.
Do your
It's
best. Yeah, yeah.
oh, getting older is crap, put it that way.
Well, hopefully getting older is wiser, you know, as our bodies start to change a little bit, you know, we have to adjust, and that's okay. You know, we're not you know, at certain ages we're not supposed to, you know, run the marathon like we did when we were in our 20s, you know. But you know, we've learned to pace ourselves. You know, the wise man learns how to finish the race, you know. The young man knows how to start the race, but the wise man knows how to finish the race.
Right. It's when I were younger, in my teenage years, when I first discovered Megadeth, that I had two posters on my wall. I had two small posters. The two big ones was Eddie, Iron Maiden, and the other
Hmm.
one was Victor Rattlehead. And then I had
Right.
a picture of you, and I had a picture of Steve Harris. So obviously, I grew
Oh,
up
wow.
liking
Thank
bass
you.
players. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
um,
thank you. I appreciate that.
yeah, no, it's surreal that I'm here actually sat talking to you. But you do another band. I mean, you've got a huge catalogue of bands. Ellefson and Soto, which
Hmm.
I'm interested in as well. Jeff Scott Soto. Is that still going? Is that still touring and
It,
doing
it it
things?
it it is. It is. You know, we decided with that. We did some shows in Italy around the first album that we did, and we realized with between Jeff's schedule and my schedule, like right now he's out with Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and that takes up almost, you know, a good 2.5 to 3 months of his life. Um, and so we just decided, look, let's make music, let's make records, and when and where possible, we'll go out and we'll play some shows. So coming up here in April 2026. We have a warm-up show at the Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood on April 9th, and then we are on the Monsters of Rock cruise from April 12th through 17th.
Yeah.
So that is going to be, you know, that's the perfect place for that, you know.
Yeah.
You know, touring, you know, when you're a younger artist, it's important to, you know, make a record and just get out and play and, you know, be available to your fans, build a fan base, go everywhere, play everywhere. You know, we've already done all that. And, you know, when you're younger, you're able to sort of adjust to the accommodations or lack thereof. You know, as you get older, you know, we like creature comforts and you know, touring has gotten only more expensive, of course. We know all about this, you know, bands have been very open about you know, big bands that talk about, you know, the financial constraints and everything that goes with it. So, you know, at some point, you know, we can use some of the other outlets, the internet, YouTube, of course, streaming services, to get our music out, talking to people like yourself who help us spread the word. So thank you for that because, it takes a team and it takes a village to get the music out there.
Just jumping back to Bass Warrior, the thing that surprised me looking at your set list is you do a Post Malone song, Over Now, as well as
Mm.
Love Me Like a Reptile, Motorhead. But I was really surprised with the Post Malone.
Well, it's funny. Love Me Like a Reptile. That was actually a song I played in like my high school rock bands, and when we got the me and my buddies got that Ace of Spades album. That seemed to be the song that jumped out at us. So we did a cover of that on the Ellefson No Cover album with Doral Pesh singing on it. So that's why we included in the set. Yeah, Over Now, we actually did a cover of that. And Post Malone gave it his thumbs up. He's a big fan of all kinds of music, but he's a Megadeth fan. He's got a So Far So Good So What tattoo. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
it's on his left elbow. So he's a rocker. And so, he's a fan of mine, and I'm a fan of his. So I figured I'd throw one back over to him, and I think we did a very good cover of it. It's available online under the Ellison name. And so yeah, we put that in the set. It's a good sound. It's very modern. It's very heavy. It's the way I would do a cover. And it's interesting because lots of times we do covers of songs that are many years old. Because they're from our record collection from our youth. Covering Over Now, that song was pretty recent. It'd only been out for 2 3 years, and we covered it.
Yeah.
So that I think is kind of fun to cover a current song as well as covering, the stuff that influenced me when I was growing up.
Yeah. Well, you did a famous cover many years ago of the Sex Pistols, Anarchy in the UK. And believe
Mm.
it or not, that was the first time I heard it. I didn't hear the Sex Pistols version, I heard your version. And
Yeah,
as a result, that's the version I love. I listen to the Sex
nice.
Pistols and I think it's not as good as the other.
Well, thank you for that. Sex Pistols, my genre with thrash metal, really, it was a fusion of heavy metal and punk rock. That's really, it was this because we were the kids who grew up with our Black Sabbath and Judas Priest records, but we also had our Ramones and Sex Pistols records, so we sort of by nature combined all of our influences into one. And when it was our turn up to bat, what came out of it was what has been dubbed thrash metal, right? So for us, to go back again into our record collection and do Anarchy in UK, and we had Steve Jones come in. Steve Jones was newly sober at that time. He was on MTV a lot. He was doing, um, he was active again. So this was 1987. So our producer Paul Lanny knew him and had him come in, and he played a solo and participated on the track with us, which I thought was super, super cool. And I've since remained friends with Steve after that.
That's fabulous. Any chance of you playing with Post Malone?
I'm, if he wants me, I sure would, but I don't, that hasn't been on the schedule, so I don't know. That's interesting you say that, but yeah, I mean, I got to know Posty a bit. Super great guy, sweet, sweet guy, and he's transitioned into all kinds of stuff, Nashville music and country and everything else. So I mean, I'm happy. I'm happy anytime somebody finds a path and has success.
Yeah. Well, if he's in the UK at the same time you're at Stonedead, that could be a nice little addition.
We'll task you to put that together.
I'll try my best.
There you
You
go.
did the Lucid with Factor drummer Mike Heller. Death metal band. Is it pronounced Death or Death or
Dieth, yeah, Dieth, yeah.
yeah? And death metal is different, but slightly different genre. Did you enjoy that sort of playing? And
Well, what you're mentioning here is, I realized, look, for the first almost 20 years, I was singular focused on Megadeth. We gave because you have to be, if you're gonna be successful, and in order to sustain that kind of success, you have to be I like how Jason Newsted said it. A fist packs a better punch than four fingers, right? So, you need to be united like a fist. And I was. Well, 2002, Megadeth is disbanded, and not by my choice, and certainly not by my, approval of any sort, but that was the card that was handed down, and that was that. Well, at that moment I realized, it's time to go exploring. It's time to go see, kind of find out who David Ellefson is, because now I've been, to start a group at 18, okay, that's one way of thinking. You're a different person at that age, right? So now here I am, I'm 38. I have a young family. I'm a very different man than I was, back in 1983 when we started Megadeth. So I sought out to start exploring, so I did all kinds of stuff. I played with Max Cavalera and Soulfly. I had a Temple of Brutality, Killing Machine, F5. I just explored, right? I put things together, which I like doing. I'm a guy who likes to start things, put things together. Um, and then in 2010, of course, I went back to Megadeth. But even during that time when I went back, I mean, look, I wasn't looking for something on the side from Megadeth because again, when I first came back, those first few years, we toured a lot, we made records. It was again very intense. But then came a point by 2017, 2018, after the Dystopia tour, from the stage in Argentina, Buenos Aires, and this, I think it was November of 2017, Dave announced we're going to go home, make a new record. Well, at that point, that shut everything down, and it shut it down for a long time because then he had some health issues with cancer treatments, and, it shut things down for a long time. We did not work very much during 2018, 2019. We did a little bit in early 2020, then COVID hit. So finally, by the time 2021, then I was dismissed from the group. So, I'm glad that my mindset by 2017, I had my coffee company. I started my record company. And I look at the timing of this, you know, ideas are just inspiration that come to us. That's all they are, right? They're inspirations, and we don't come up with them. They come to us. And so it's what we do with them that determines the outcome. Is it just an idea that I put on the back burner and never saw it come to fruition, or is it an idea that I put something together to make it happen? And I had a team around me. It's not me that does all this stuff. I always have a team. And Sorry about that. And in this thing with having a team, what came was, hey, let's get busy on the coffee company. And the person who brought that to me was a woman. I was on a shipwreck cruise. It was a woman who had been a production assistant for Megadeth, and she said, "I got to introduce you to this guy and Paul from Between the Buried and Me." And so he helped me start my coffee company. And then around that same time, I was producing. I founded a couple of groups. I started producing. I ended up starting a record company. I acquired Combat Records, the trademark. So I started to work under that moniker. Um, and then, I authored another book, More Life with Death, which was kind of a follow-up to my first memoir, My Life with Death. And so all these things just started happening. And so it's interesting when you look at the timeline because as Megadeth started, ramping down, and it wasn't intentionally ramping down. There was a lot of work on the books, but trying to write a record, Dave's health matter that came up unexpectedly, of course, then COVID, the calendar just got wiped clean, So number one, there was not very much income. And I was only working with Megadeth as a sideman participant at that point. I was not a full-fledged member. So I had the ability and the luxury to go out and do whatever I wanted, quite honestly. Um, so I did. And so all of these things that happened, and even the Lucid record, I started working on that during COVID. The first Ellefson Soda record, Vacation in the Underworld, I started working on that during COVID in 2021. Post Malone song, Ellison No Cover. A lot of these things I did during COVID. I was very productive during COVID. 2020 and 2021 were very musically and creatively productive years for me. So as the world was shut down, I was working very hard. And so even though I was, dismissed out of Megadeth, I had a full cannon of stuff, teed up, ready to go. Plus some other things came in. Obviously, I didn't see Kings of Thrash coming, so that developed. The Nick Menza movie, so all of these things, I think when you have, the channel's open and things are moving. It's like a river, right? If you dam it up, the water stops and everything downstream dries up. So once you even open it up, it takes a while to re-nourish what's downstream. So my thing is never dam up the river. Just keep it open all times. Keep the fish and the trees and keep everything that's in the river of life, keep it moving, keep that river of life open. And to me, that is the secret and that is the formula of how I live my life.
Well, it's working. One thing that I loved is that he was on the album Prophecy, Soulfly. So one of my favorite bands. You can't see it. I've got a signed poster up there with the set list, and so you're combining one of my favorite bands with my favorite bassist. It's a win-win for me. So
Yeah.
I love that you were on that. But I'm interested in a couple other things. You wrote a thriller, Rockstar Hitman.
Right. Yeah, it's funny. My friend Drew 48, is a dear,
It's okay.
yeah, so Rockstar Hitman was a fun book that my friend Drew 48, we did the film Dwellers, excuse me, which is a found footage horror film. We actually have another film that we're working on together right now. Actually, it's his film. He's included me in it. So we just got together being creative. We did the Lucid together. We did one record. We did another kind of a EP, I guess. And just kind of keep the creative channel moving, keep the river flowing. And so that was that little season of life where I did that stuff. And I like writing books. I'd never written a fictional book before.
Yeah.
Um, Drew and I have been talking about doing another book together. So, you write memoirs. I wrote a music business book, which is kind of a how-to type of book. But writing some fiction, is something that I just wanted to explore at some point, and I'll definitely do more of it here moving forward.
Yeah. You also invest in the horror films where you just brushed on there. I'm a huge horror fan. I don't know if you can see Art the Clown behind my shoulder.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So
horror blends very well with heavy metal, right? Like you said, you had Eddie and Vic on your wall, right? So
yeah,
you know what I mean? So that's kind of what we like that, right? That's the macabre imagery. It's all that it is. So we like that as metalheads.
yeah. You also played with KK's Priest, who were also at Stonedead 2 years ago.
Mhm.
But have you played at his venue, KK Steel Mill?
I did. So, it's funny. KK and I always got on well when we were on tour together in 1990 and 91 with the Painkiller Rest in Peace tour. And, life moved on. Um, Judas Priest actually ended up supporting and opening for Megadeth in Mexico when Tim Ripper Owens was in the band. So, our paths would cross a lot. We'd see Judas
Yeah.
Priest and Megadeth. We became friends and so when I was doing I didn't call it Bass Warrior, then I called it Bass Story. I was doing a tour across Europe and I wanted to play, I needed a UK date. And so I called Ken, KK, and I asked him about playing at his venue at KK Steel Mill. I didn't know much about it. I'd heard about it. So anyway, he helped me put a show together there. And he was very hands-on with it. He helped me kind of build out the ticket price and the kind of the whole thing with it, right? He's like me, he knows the business and he's very involved. And I kept kind of nudging him like, hey, do you wanna come up and jam? You wanna play a song, and he's like, I don't know, we'll see, mate. We'll see how it goes, and then by the time we got there, I have a friend here in town, Todd Decker, and he worked with KK on some construction projects with him, and so he actually flew Tim Ripper Owens over there, and then we brought in Les Banks. I mean, in my mind, it was Judas Priest 2.0, right? It was like this whole, thing, and basically after my band played our bass story set. I went upstairs, changed my T-shirt, and came back down, and we ripped into it. And then me and KK, and Ripper and Les Binks, we went on stage and played a whole hour, hour and a half of really great Judas Priest songs,
Excellent.
and it was from there. That's what Ken got the idea to start KK's Priest. So I was really happy about that because being in a band for a long time and then not being in that band, I know that feeling. I am that guy, right? So I can empathize with that. There's a lot that goes to that because there's sort of been your identity. There's a lot of emotions involved in it. There's just a lot, right? Finances and everything else. And I thought, get your guitar on, KK. Let's go rock. You're not done, dude. Let's go. And so I love doing that. Is just kind of being the wind in people's sails. And of course, KK. He doesn't need me to sing his praises. He's friggin' KK Downing. So but he
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
he and I have become dear friends, and we've had some great musical partnerships. I mean, he's the one who called me about being on the Back to the Beginning show back
Yeah.
in July. So, that's just how these things work. Again, the river, right? You stay open, you stay available, you just keep the river of life flowing, and more good things happen for everybody.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. I wish I were there on that night, but that was absolutely magical. I
It
love the
was,
venue. Yeah.
yeah, it
So,
was.
with you being the headline act on the Friday party night at Stonedead Festival, we generally don't get to meet the band, but I would love to actually catch up with you on that night if possible, because just to meet you and shake your hand and say
Yeah,
hello. So, yeah, that'd be
I-
fantastic.
I'm sure it can be arranged.
Yeah. Brilliant. I have one last question before you run off to Mexico.
Yeah, man.
My beautiful partner Tracy, she gave me a question that I ask everybody, and it's tell me something about you that nobody knows.
God, what could that possibly be at this point? Um, probably what I had for breakfast, coffee and eggs, you know what I mean? So, um, you know, my life's a pretty open book, there's probably not much. You know, um, my whole life is rock and roll. I read rock and roll books, I have rock and roll eggs, I drink rock and roll coffee, I fly on rock and roll planes to go do rock and roll concerts. You know what I mean? It's just I like what you see is what you get, it's I don't know. That's a tough one. I mean everything's kind of just grooving along pretty good, you know what I mean? So um but there's probably not much that people don't already know about me. I do a lot of interviews, so people know. They hear me talk all the time, maybe too much.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much for your time. And
You're
have a
welcome.
safe trip to Mexico.
All right. Thanks so much, Joe. See you, buddy. See ya.
And see you
Bye.
in August. Bye.